Elizabeth Bradford. I live on my great-grandfather's farm just outside Davidson, North Carolina. When I was little, I would come here to stay with my grandparents, and it was a working farm then. My great-grandfather bought this place in 1890, and then my grandfather was born in my bedroom in 1896, and then my father was born in my bedroom in 1926. I moved here shortly after college and have lived here my whole adult life. And I came back here because the memories I had of being here as a child with my grandparents were so powerful. Growing up with that front porch experience, I always attribute that front porch experience to my strong sense of place. And, you know, I have traveled all over the world, but to me, the most beautiful place was always here. And I'm deeply rooted. The farm, which used to be in a community of farms, is now in a community of subdivisions. So I kind of tend to run away from it personally, go hike in the woods or go someplace less populated when I can, and then channel it through the work. The things you see deep in the wild, they're profound, they're complex and imaginative and colorful and crazy. They're just miracles everywhere, and they're the work of some kind of incredibly creative force. That's my cure for pain. If there's a pain I can't handle, that's the way I can begin to cope with it. For 15 years, I had the job of being an art teacher in a high school. I didn't get long stretches of uninterrupted time, so if there was a single snow day, vacation day, whatever, it was a painting day. Last week I was taking a walk in a very wild place, and I came to a stream, and there was a fish nest where there's a fish that rolls stones into a pile. And I'm standing there looking at this fish nest, and it's swarming with tiny red fish. And then, of course, all around it, wonderful plant life, every single shape and pattern you can imagine, all woven together. Well, I'm painting that right now because that's just wild. That's just a crazy, wild thing to see. Long time ago, in my 30s, I was looking for subjects, and there's a lovely old country bridge across the creek. I leaned over the side of it and started drawing, and that was my first time I really studied water patterns and rendered them. Over time, it just became a real fascination. It's like having a creek in your living room. What could be better? You know, your house could be falling water too. Just get the right creek going. I like the idea of bringing those things into the home, and it's like punching a window in the wall. And I know the old talk about, is art a window or not? And mine is kind of a window. I kind of always liked that idea. If you're working from nature the way I do, it composes itself. And like millions of things overlap millions of other things. You don't have to do a lot. It's provided for you. Just copy it down. And let all your angst and your weirdness and your ideas come through that channel, through that portal of your work. When I was first getting started, my very first efforts were in colored pencil, which is automatically very quiet. If you want it to be vivid, you have to go over and over and over and over it 1,000 times. And so I was doing these highly developed drawings that were big, that were colored pencil, that would take me 6 months to a year to do one. And I would do the drawing, and then when it was done, I would compose it and I would crop it. I would like say, there's a whole lot of nothing over here, and I would whack that off. And I would play with cropping. Thank goodness it was on paper because I could just tear it up. But it took me a long time. That was not an easy lesson to learn. It took me maybe a decade to be strong at composing a piece. We are in Appalachia on the New River. It's one of my favorite places to float. It's just such a calm, gentle, beautiful river. Been paddling the New River since, for about 30 years. My favorite thing to do is to kind of stealth paddle so that I can slip up to the banks and not frighten the birds or the animals. Try to be as silent as I can. Pretty much anytime I'm outdoors, my eyes are tuned in, looking for imagery, looking for an idea. It's so primordial. Just walk out the door, 15 minutes later, I found something that would be wonderful to paint. A lot of the landscape where I live is cultivated, has been cultivated for a long time. And so it's hard to find things that sort of match my ethos, which is the untampered with world, the native plants, things the way they were before we tinkered with them. I want to try to improve our reputation in the wild world as humans who are always disruptors, and, just be one with it, be a part of it. I'm not standing on a bank looking across at it, giving you some picturesque rendering of it. I'm down in it. I'm down in it, and I'm looking at the patterns in the 1 square foot of water right next to me, or, I just think it's important. Maybe it's one of the most important parts is that I'm immersed, and if you come along, you will be too. When I walk into that exhibition space, there'll be a lot of opportunities for immersion, and also just like a lot of dazzling jewel-like color. I never see all these pieces together at once, ever, until they're hung. And it usually makes me gasp when I walk into a gallery and see it all together. For a long time, I suppressed color in my work because I didn't want to rely on cheap tricks. I wanted it to be solid without the advantage of gorgeous color. But later in my career, I realized that I was a total colorist, and I was just being this monk about it. And so I thought, okay, what the heck? And I started dragging and exaggerating color and doing colored underpainting. That's really always where my head's been, and I'm not sure why I felt the need to suppress it, but I did. It's a seduction. This is what you call a stand of weeds, but look at the beauty of it. I mean, just for a minute, check it out. Is that shrub from Lowe's in your front yard more beautiful than this? I try to make the pieces themselves, especially those large ones, really immersive, so that you're forced to kind of experience being in the wild, whether you have never left your living room or not. You're thrust into a place maybe that's unaccustomed to you. I've had a lot of people respond to that too, come back at me and say, I would have looked at this before and just thought it was a jumble of weeds, but I see now the beauty in it. or they'll send me a picture of a jumble of weeds and say, "This made me think of you." So I don't think my work is straightforwardly crusading. I think it's subversively crusading. I mean, it's coming from a real pure place of grief for what we've lost, fear for what we are continuing to lose, and for what our kids won't have, and joy in how extraordinary the gift that was given us was and still is in hidden corners that we haven't gotten to yet.